so.
All right. Simon says he's ready. I'm recording now. We are recording. Right. You got everything ready to go?
I think we got everything ready to go.
All right. We don't have Josh to save us now.
And now more and more, like I felt overconfident before. It's like, hey, Josh's job is super easy, but now I'm just like, oh man,
right?
What do I do? What do I say? Like,
how do
I present myself?
Yeah, you ready to do the intro?
Yes. Okay.
Ready for that?
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna play the theme music and get ready to spiel whatever it is you want to say at the beginning. Ready?
Okay. Are we recording right now?
Yes, we're recording right now.
Oh yeah. Okay. Let's do this. All right.
3, 2.
Get my Josh spirit going. All right, what's up, everyone? This is your host, Simon Yu. I'm with the sexy stash, Jordan Acosta.
You didn't have to do that part, but okay.
No. I have to imbue Josh's spirit right now. That's what I'm doing right now. Okay. All right, sexy stash Acosta, and as you know, 1/3 of the team is not here with us. He's making money doing something right now in
this does not
Northern
make money.
California.
This does not make any money.
We're not there yet. We're not there yet, but hopefully it'll get there. So, but all right. So why don't we begin? Let's get into the show. What do we got? Show reviews. What to watch? Mandalorian season 3. So I don't know for the 1 or 2 viewers that watched it, but we did a reaction video, our first reaction video, right, Jordan?
Yeah, and your family definitely enjoyed it from what I know.
Yes.
The two subscribers we have.
Exactly. Thanks, family. You're the best.
Yeah.
But any other thoughts? Any more thoughts about Mandalorian season 3? What to expect? What your anything else that you wanted to say before that you weren't able to on Wednesday?
Man, I don't know. Nothing yet. I mean, with one episode, there's not a whole lot to go on, right? I'm sure.
Yeah.
As we go along, themes will develop. Metaphors will be presented.
Indeed.
The mythic cycle or whatever, will take shape. But for now, not a whole lot other than to say that, yeah, I mean, it still holds up. It wasn't just, I mean, part of me was wondering, like, well, it's just been a while since we've seen this show, and it's a well-produced show, right? I mean, that's one thing that's worth noting. For a while there, is like, Andor is the thing that's going to save Star Wars, because it was the only good show after, like, 4 or 5 shows that they made. Yeah. This is a good reminder. Okay, Mandalorian's good too. It's very different. I appreciated the, what it's like. Andor is just, it's so intense. And so this feels like a nice break, like a dessert. Not worse, just different. And also I really appreciate the, it's got that classic Western straightforwardness to it. Like he doesn't say much, the Mandalorian, who's like, he stands there in his helmet. You don't know what he's thinking. But you also don't really need to, because he just says what he's thinking. He doesn't, right? It's pretty entertaining to have all these people around him, like, making speeches and trying to convince him to do stuff, and he'll just respond with like one sentence. Like, he'll say yes, he'll say no. Like, I'm going to do this, and then he'll go and do it. Right? He's a very reliable man. You can count on the Mandalorian. That's the only thing I think I would add so far, is just, it's nice to have that vibe back, and I look forward to seeing more of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool, man. I think there was an aspect, I wasn't able to describe it, but when you mentioned Mythic Quest, it was very Campbell-esque of you. But
I didn't say Mythic Quest, I said Mythic Cycle, although Mythic Quest is also a show I enjoy. But,
yes, indeed. But I was just reiterating based off my interpretation of what you were saying. But you mentioned on that reaction episode about how it's very much like kind of a D&D fantasy quest kind of adventure. And I think that was the thing that I really enjoyed about it.
Yeah.
And so, but I didn't have the words to describe that. It's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what this is. And that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to what would happen with IG-11 and how that's part of his greater redemption arc, So
Yeah.
we shall see.
Yeah. Yeah, we shall see. I think maybe now it's too early, but I think there's a really interesting think piece to be written about. Hell, maybe I'll write it. Because how the Mandalorian starts off as Han Solo and then turns into Luke Skywalker, right?
Yeah.
Because he's not a smuggler, but he is like a for-hire mercenary bounty hunter kind of guy. He's got a ship with a bunch of stuff on it, and switching from the ship to a starfighter, which is a Luke Skywalker vehicle, because that's the Star Wars version of a gallant steed, right? A Shadowfax, right? Is just really interesting to me, because like even already, I mean, technically he got it in season 2.5, right. But technically this is the first episode of The Mandalorian proper, where he's flown around in it, and it's a totally different vibe, right? He doesn't have a home base. This ship was his home base, and,
yes.
Right? And he had like a little like prison in there that he could keep the people he caught. He's not a bounty hunter anymore, and he's not chasing bounties. He's on quests, and he's riding around in his steed, and he rides up to castles, right? And dismounts from his steed. I don't know. It's just, I'm digging that vibe, and I can't wait to see more of it. But we'll talk about this more as the season progresses.
So, truthishly, I'm gonna invent a word here. Truthishly.
Okay.
I actually didn't like the Starfighter. I was so like,
Shut up.
This is, dude.
Shut up.
I hated it. I was like, why is it a souped up Naboo fighter? That's
Simon's
so
gonna be
dumb.
muted for the remainder of this episode. Hold on. I'm just looking for the control for that.
No. Seriously though, I was just like, this is just basically, he's just Fast and Furiousing a Naboo fighter, and I was just like, I love the Razor Crest. I thought the Razor Crest was dope. I thought it was autonomous. It was him being self-reliant. It was him like he had everything in the Razor Crest, right? However, you changed my mind.
Oh, thank God.
And I'm okay with it now, because it's like, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's just
Right.
like, I think I was being a part of the character as Mandalorian, like, oh, Mandalorian's so cool, and I attached myself with him. I would never enjoy something that cramped. So that one scene with the hyperdrive, and he's just like he's like fetal positioning himself in this tiny cockpit, and I was like, this is uncomfortable. This is absolutely uncomfortable.
Right.
But the purpose of it and how you described it is like, okay, that makes sense to me.
Of course it makes sense. Of course it makes sense. It's all just, this is the oldest stuff out there. I mean, oldest stuff out. This is all classic mythical metaphor, right?
Sure.
Like, we're displaced from, the true origins of these things from like, the Odyssey and stuff. But yeah, it's still the same. It still means the same thing under the hood, so to speak. Also, saying that it's like, oh, he's just Fast and Furiousing, that rolls off the tongue. Fast and Furiousing. That doesn't. I feel like that doesn't really sound bad either. I'm not really sure how that's a bad thing. I do not mind a little Fast and Furious, sprinkled here and there in other franchises. The world could use a little bit more of that. It's the beginning of the end of the road is coming, Simon. So at some point, if you want more Fast and Furious, you're gonna have to get it from other sources, right?
Okay.
So,
and you know what? There's gonna be familia in this show. I guarantee
yes,
it.
it's all about familia. That's literally, this show is literally all about familia.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And I think, like, for example, I do believe IG-11 is gonna get resurrected, and like their relationship is gonna start all over again. Because like they're trying to figure out how to have the original programming. I doubt that they'll figure that out. So they'll have to figure out how to reprogram him again. And Grogu. And we talked about it in the last episode. But like, if by chance he decides to go above the traditions and the fundamentalism of the cult to the hyper practical, other side of the Mandalorian tradition, with Bo-Katan, and he just makes his own. He's gonna have a clan of his own, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly. His own familia, and IG-11 is familia. That's what he says, right?
That's right. Right.
I'm glad you used the term resurrected, by the way, because I think that's important. This isn't about fixing a droid. This is about resurrecting a fallen warrior, right?
Yeah.
In mythic terms, that's what he's doing.
Yep.
There's other stories in this genre that have similar, plots where they're trying to bring back some fallen hero from a bygone age or something. Right?
Okay.
And that's what he's doing. Is he's going to resurrect? I mean, assuming he succeeds, he's going to resurrect a fallen warrior.
Right.
I think that's the lens through which to watch this show, and I love it. I love that this exists, and we get to talk about it and make references to the Fast and the Furious.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we've done more. We've done plenty, stretching out the first episode. Can't wait for the second.
Yep.
So looking forward to it. But off camera, you presented a comic book, and it's kind of a review. And I believe it's called Laila Starr. You want to talk a little about that?
Yeah, let's talk about the many deaths of Laila Starr. So this is not a review of Laila Starr because I talked about it last year. This was on my 10 best. I think this was my number 2, second best comic of the year. Yeah, number 2. Number 1? It was number 2 or number 1. I had to read it using Libby, which is the library app. So I got it from the LA Public Library. Because you can do anything when you've got your library card, and Libby's great.
So magical.
Yeah, I had to because it was sold out. That's how popular this book was.
Wow.
And this is not a Marvel book. It's published by Boom Studios, who are not that well known, but they publish a lot of good stuff. You've probably read some stuff by them.
Yeah.
And it's written by Ram V, who has written a lot of stuff. He's writing some Batman stuff right now. It's really good. He had a good year last year, and then the art is by Felipe Andrade, and it looks like this. It's stuff like this,
Nice.
And it's called The Many Deaths of Laila Starr, and it's about basically one day God decides that the universe doesn't really need death anymore, and so he fires her.
Ooh.
She gets fired and has to come to Earth and rely on the charity of life, who God thinks is the best, is his favorite employee. It's hard to explain. You just have to read it. The important thing is the premise is basically Laila Starr is the name she takes on Earth, and she kind of just dies over and over again. And it's sort of about what happens in each of these lives that she has. And she's the same person. I don't know. You just have to read it. But the art, I mean, hold on, let me see if I can find a really good image for this. The art is just bananas. I mean, the writing's excellent. The characterization is excellent. But like this book is full of stuff that looks like this, where you get like these big scenes of, it's set in India, right?
Okay.
And you just get like these incredibly well illustrated, detailed shots of like the city and ancient temples, and it's great. I highly recommend it. The reason I wanted to bring it up is because they were sold out at the comic book shop, and I wasn't able to get a physical copy. And I read it on my phone.
So, wait a second. How'd you get a physical copy now?
Well, because I asked the guy, and he says, "Oh, we're out. I'll order more." And they finally came in. I lucked out though, because when they came in, they are these nice hardcover editions.
Nice. So,
even if you haven't read it, I strongly recommend you go find yourself a hardcover of this thing. This is the sort of thing that's worth owning in hardcover. It's just an incredible book, and I don't really have a whole lot else to say. At least there's not much I can say without like ruining it. There's just a lot that happens issue by issue, and almost any details I share will kind of spoil something.
Would you say that it acts like an anthology? but it's centered around that central character of death.
It's not. I wouldn't say it's like an anthology, although it is very episodic. It's more episodic than a lot of comic books because each issue is a separate life. Like she's kind of brought to Earth, and then dies later that day. And that's the first issue. Yeah, she's really bad at it. That's kind of the joke. Is she's not. She's like this supernatural cosmic being and is not good at being a human. And each issue is a separate life. And there's sometimes several years in between each life. And there is this one character. It's largely about her relationship with this one human who she meets as an infant when he's born. And then meets him over again throughout his life up until the day he's like an old man. Right. And it is really episodic. But there is an arc, and you know that you follow. But yeah, this is great, and especially even for people who don't like comics. This is one of those comic books that's good for people who don't like comics. It's not about superheroes. It's pretty funny, but not like silly. And it's got but themes, dude. I was just saying, it's got those themes. It's got those deep, weighty themes. So yeah, no, I highly recommend this. Let's see, it won a bunch of awards. Yeah.
So it's a hard sell. It's a hard recommend from Jordan and Pasta. Okay.
Yeah. Anyone who doesn't own this is just missing out on so much in life.
Sexy Stash approved, everyone. Sexy Stash approved.
Yeah. If I had a little stamp shaped like a mustache.
Yes.
I'd put that on the book right now.
I'm gonna find a custom stamp maker. We're gonna have that. When you showed one of those pages, it reminds me of So I'm not too familiar with Philip Andrade, but is he an American artist or?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Because it reminds me a lot of those big hardcover European French comic books, you know?
Yeah, he's not. Let's see. It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't really have like it doesn't have a blurb about him or anything that says where he is. It's definitely not. It's not European, although it's definitely. Hold on, here we go. He's from Portugal.
Oh,
so I mean, European, but not Franco-Belgian. So that's the thing when you talk European comics, you mean like Franco-Belgian comics, like the heavy metal stuff, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that. I was thinking
like Prince Valiant too. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It's not like that. It's definitely, I mean, there's a lot of like stuff like this. So the thing when you talk about like those European comics, right? What defines a lot of them is they have this very cinematic look and feel because they, in every panel, they kind of just draw what's there, including all the backgrounds, right? Whereas in like American comics, sometimes there's no backgrounds, you just see figures, right? And this is definitely one of those. I don't know what to call these postmodern comics where like they don't really fit into, because it's true, up until like the 80s or something, every comic book in the world mostly fell into one of three camps, right? Manga, bande dessinée, right? Is that the way to say it? I don't speak French. Franco-Belgian comics, European comics, and then American style comics, right? Sure. And then I guess you could throw in like indie comics spelt with an X, right, as a separate thing. But this is definitely one of those that kind of like it blends a lot of influences from across those genre, right? Okay. It is, but it's got that attention to detail. Like that is true. A lot of European comics do have like this incredibly exquisite attention to detail, fine line work.
Right.
It's definitely got that.
All right. Okay. So there you have it, everyone. It's The Many Deaths of Laila Starr?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sexy Stash approved.
You probably should have written that in the script, the title of the thing.
It's all right. It's all right. This was we found that out today, and I just wanted to talk about it. So, hey, this is just how new podcasts roll. You know what I'm saying? We're doing something. We're doing up and coming things.
We're only like 10 episodes in, guys. We're still.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly. And we're just getting better and better every time. But okay, so let's move on to our next section. Going to the laundromat to talk to my auntie and my cousins. Word on the street. Word on the street is Ben Affleck is doing Brave and the Bold.
Yep.
You hear anything about this?
Completely unsubstantiated rumors.
Yes.
That Ben Affleck, I mean, we know for a fact that Ben Affleck will be involved. He's talking to James Gunn and wants to be involved in the DCU, I guess is what we're calling it. Mm-hmm. Or the DCEU? No, the DCU.
No, it's DCU. Yeah.
Man, I can't keep track of this. Ben Affleck wants to make comic book movies. And I mean, obviously Batman would be an obvious choice given that he was originally supposed to star and direct, and then he's like, I can't star, it's just too much. And then he was going to direct, and then I guess even that was like not great for his schedule, and then he just wasn't doing anything. But now James Gunn is just like looping in everybody, right? I mean, honestly, he brought in like, you know, this writer's room of like, you know, premier talent and is involving comic book, you know, writers. Grant Morrison, by the way, has written, right, for TV himself.
Yeah.
And was a showrunner on Happy, which I think was based on one of his comics.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah.
That's with the guy from Law and Order, right?
Yeah, Maloney.
Name, yeah.
Which I thought was a pretty good show. It's a fun show. So it's not inconceivable that he would direct Batman. It's not definitely... I mean, he's known for his very noir, grounded crime films. So it's definitely not the first thing I'd think of is Brave and the Bold, right? Like, so we'll see how that translates. But I mean, he's a pretty talented director. You could probably figure it out somehow. Either that or he'll direct something else. But that's the rumor.
Okay.
I guess we'll see.
I mean, yes, exactly. We'll see. One of the things that I remember you talk about all the time that there's people want to work for James Gunn. You know what I'm saying? And maybe Affleck, if this is somewhat true, you know, sometimes I can't trust my auntie, but if this was somewhat true, he's probably got the J Gunn bug. I was like, look, I'm hearing these great, awesome things that you guys want to do. I want to participate or I want to collaborate creatively with you. So who knows?
People like him.
Exactly. They love to work with the guy. So and they're loyal. They're loyal to him, you know. So who knows? Yeah,
and I do feel like even though it's not his traditional style. I mean, I think I've said already. Who was the director of? I know this isn't going to happen, but
he was the director of what?
Martin Campbell, right? My choice would be Martin Campbell.
Oh, okay.
Probably most infamous as the director of Green Lantern, but before that, he made Casino Royale and The Mask of Zorro.
Okay.
And
so he makes fun movies.
Well, not just fun movies; those are masterpieces. Those are absolutely amazing movies.
Really?
Right?
Okay.
And have you seen Casino Royale?
Yes, I've seen Casino Royale. Yes.
It's an amazing movie. It's like a perfect movie.
Okay. All right. I'll take your word for it. I liked it. I'm not denying that.
We're not going. We don't have time to go down that path right now. But also The Mask of Zorro, which is an amazing movie. I love that movie. Yeah. Amazing. And if you just mash those up, that's what I want from The Brave and the Bold. I just want those things mashed because that's what Batman is, at least in Grant Morrison's run. So it's James Bond, Zorro. You just mash them together, right?
That's a great point.
That's what you get. And I think James Campbell has the chops to make that work, and he has the style to make that work. But there's been no talk of anything like that happening, so I assume it's not. I feel like Gunn as a producer seems to it does seem like he's good at making people better. Like he gets the best out of people and gets more out of them than you would expect, I think. And so, I think it could work, but I guess we'll see. I don't know. We'll see.
Let me ask you this. Have you heard at all of Jimmy G, no, James Gunn, involved in the reshoots for Flash?
No.
Okay, then never mind. Because I'm wondering maybe if he got involved there.
You're the one going to the laundromat to help your family
Man,
out. How am I supposed to know about the rumors? You're supposed to know about the rumors.
They initiate the conversations.
You're hosting the show.
I can't say prove it to Auntie. She's gonna smack me up with the
But what am I supposed to do about this? What do I don't know about any of this stuff.
We're just speculating here. That's all we're doing.
If you want me to just speculate.
Anyways, I'm speculating.
I'm speculating that it's going to be Quentin Tarantino. He's going to direct The Brave and the Bold. That's starter rumor right now. Quentin Tarantino is going to direct The Brave and the Bold, based on literally nothing. I'm just going to say that. We're going to put it on the internet, and James Gunn is going to have to go on Twitter and deny it to a bunch of asshats who go like, "Why are you making James?"
You heard it first from the mouths of the Secret Hideout podcast. You've heard it first that Quentin Tarantino is directing The Brave and the Bold.
I mean, that would be pretty awesome, though. I think now that I think about it,
who knows, right? That'd be dope.
That's exactly that style, that retro pop style that The Brave and the Bold has.
What we just did here?
Yeah,
we birthed a rumor.
A new rumor. Oh man,
a new rumor.
See, that's how you know you've made it. Yep. In the content creator space.
I'm crossing a checklist item right now.
There's how many people their entire careers they just go on Twitter and they just start rumors.
You know what I'm saying?
They just make stuff up. They just put it out there.
And they make money for it.
Yeah.
No, they make buco bucks for it. So why not us?
So we're gonna take that clip, right? And we're gonna make a short on YouTube and we're just getting all caps, it's gonna say Quentin Tarantino directing Brave and the Bold? Hashtag Batman, hashtag J-Gun, hashtag DCU. We're just gonna put that out there.
Yep. I am marking it, my friend. UT.
If this just for I don't know, to get ahead of it, if this actually does happen and we actually start a rumor, I just want to apologize to James Gunn ahead of time.
No, I'm omitting that.
He's gonna have to take time out of his day to go on Twitter and be like, no, I haven't talked to Quentin Tarantino. No, he's not directing.
How amazing would it be that we annoyed him and had him more work?
I don't
do his full plate.
I feel like I feel like that's somebody I don't want to annoy.
Everyone, this is what happens when Josh is gone.
Yeah.
Reins are gone. Boundaries are limitless.
It just all goes to hell. It just all goes to hell.
With the unsubstantiated rumor about Quentin Tarantino directing The Brave and the Bold for the DCU.
Right.
Let's go to our next segment, Jive Talk. Let's do Jive Talk.
All
right. What's on the docket for Jive Talk? Okay. Haunted Mansion. It's going to be premiering on Disney Plus. Let me say, I'll start it off. Initially, I wasn't thrilled about this. They already made one with Eddie Murphy, right? I was like, why are they doing it again? But I'm looking at the cast and I'm looking at that trailer.
Right.
I'm curious. I would like to watch this.
It's a good cast.
Yeah.
It's a good cast. I mean, there's no knowing if they will have together there will be the chemistry, but it is a strong cast. You got all the right ingredients to make something really good. Yeah.
Right. I mean, Danny DeVito. I just have the IMDb up right here. Danny DeVito, Jamie Lee Curtis, Lakeith Stanfield, Tiffany. I love Tiffany Haddish. And yeah, man, this Rosario Dawson. Oh, Jared Leto. But you know what? He's the Hatbox Ghost, which if he doesn't say anything, it might be a good thing.
If it's a limited role,
yes,
then hopefully it's not that bad.
Yeah. But aside from that, Danny DeVito.
Do we need a new segment for this show just called "What the hell is Jared Leto in now"?
Yeah,
or Leto or however.
Right. Is it? We should call it Leto or Leto.
What's there's that podcast that I think we're all fans of and are shamelessly attempting to copy, Mr. Sunday Movies.
Oh yes.
He calls him Jared Leto. He always says it like that. I don't know why. I think it's some kind of in joke he started. But in my head now, that's how I hear it all the time.
Leto.
Okay. Because I can never. I don't want to say he's a bad actor, but I can never take that guy seriously in any role I see him in. It feels like he is it feels like a stunt. It feels like he's playing a role on Saturday Night Live and he's overdoing it for comedic effect. Every role I see him in, that's what it seems like he's doing when I see it.
I confuse him with Jake Gyllenhaal like all the freaking time. Yeah, I do. And like,
do you want to stop for a moment and apologize to Jake Gyllenhaal before we move on from that?
So let me do it in a way that I don't have to say the actual words. I'm sorry, but like, because like there's moments where I think about like movies. I was like, you know what? Actually, Jared Leto is actually a pretty good actor. And then I was like, wait, no, that's Jake Gyllenhaal.
What the? They don't look anything alike,
bro.
They look literally nothing alike.
I don't know why, but like,
just all white people look the same to you, is what?
I'm not saying that. But if there is an instance of that happening, it's happening right now with Leto and Gyllenhaal.
They look there's no similarity there at all. Are you looking at pictures of them right now?
No, I don't. See, that's the thing. I don't look at pictures of them. I was just like, and sometimes they just mix it back. You remember that crazy picture of the dress? Like some people saw a white dress and some people saw like a
blue dress.
Violet dress. Yeah. That's me and like Jared Leto and Jake Gyllenhaal. It's just like, oh wait. It's one person, but sometimes I see him as letters.
So depending on the lighting.
It's
either this is one of the greatest actors of his generation, or it's Jared Leto. Like,
yes, exactly. So,
right. So I just want this on the record though before we move on. I am definitely not on the same page as Simon. Everybody, I don't want to insult Jake Gyllenhaal. Great actor, big fan.
He is a great actor. You're absolutely right.
He does not look and I don't think he looks anything like Jared Leto, and I would never confuse the two.
Honestly, at noon, midday sun, if they shaved their heads, they have
like different head shapes. Like Jared Leto has he's like a tall, like he's stretched out, like he's a tall, skinny guy. He's got like a tall head, right? Just looks complete. Okay, whatever. We're moving on from this. Clearly, I'm not going to convince you.
Anyways, I'm pleasantly surprised, and I'm going to watch it. I would like to watch it because of its cast and see how they'll do. So all right.
Little weird that it's coming out in July, but okay.
Yeah. So they could really sell this, right? Do it near fall, in October, right? Why not?
It feels more like a holiday film, and the only reason maybe is they probably have other stuff on their schedule for the holidays or whatever. But whatever,
All right. So, anyways, next subject. There's a Hellboy reboot. We don't know why.
Again, let's clarify. There was a Hellboy reboot that you might be thinking of already that happened a few years ago. This is a different one now. It's a different Hell. They're doing it again.
Yes.
So yeah.
So they have announced some cast people in the movie. I don't know. I forgot their names off the top of my head, but one gentleman is in that Yellowstone show that Josh absolutely loves and adores. And then a female role from an actress who's in Resident Evil, or the newest Resident Evil. But anyways, I have not heard who they're playing, and this does not excite me one bit.
So they've announced Jack Kesey as Hellboy himself.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. I literally don't know who that is, and I don't know what else he's been in. Is that who you're referring to?
Let's find out. Nope, I am not referring to this person.
Okay. So apparently he was in Deadpool from an article I read, but I don't remember him. At least not this picture.
Right.
So I have no thoughts on this because I don't really know anything about this guy or what he's like. I just typed his name. He was in Baywatch with Dwayne Johnson and Zac Efron. I don't know the Baywatch movie.
Yes, right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, The Crooked Man is one of the better stories. It's more of a standalone thing, so hopefully this won't be another Because I think part of the problem is they keep trying to like lean into the, if you haven't read the Hellboy comics, like they're kind of like the X-Files in that like there's just like their cases that he works. Mm-hmm. There's this thing called the BPRD, and they have a bunch of agents, and Hellboy's one of them. And they go out and they catch monsters and stuff and work with supernatural events and solve things. And they're all pretty standalone. Over the years, a sort of larger arc did develop, but it was very gradual and slow. And in the movies, they just jump straight into that arc though, to the point where like Hellboy is like supposed to bring about the apocalypse, right? It's a lot to try to stuff into one movie, and it kind of ruins any chance of building out a franchise, because it's sort of like what they did with the Justice League, right? Like you're gonna have Justice League, you're gonna kill Superman in the second movie, have him fight Doomsday. And then immediately Darkseid's coming after them. What do you do now? You've already burned through. You've killed off most of your supporting casts, right? And so it's similar to that. So this sounds like maybe they're going to focus on just like a smaller story and not try to go, 0 to 60 in the first movie.
Okay.
But I'm not excited about. I mean, the director is the guy who co-directed Crank. and then his solo directing has just been a bunch of movies that weren't very good and weren't well received. So yeah, this does not change my mind, because I'm like, okay, they cast some guy,
right?
Like I don't. Right. At this point, it feels like a 50-50. This could be good or it could be the worst thing ever. Well, okay, I'm gonna make this prediction. I don't think it'll be the worst. I think it'll probably be fine. Will it be good enough to justify a sequel? I'm still skeptical, because everybody involved are like, okay, well, they're competent enough to make a movie. I just don't know if it'll be like a good movie.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, one of the things. Well, first of all, I wanted to say this for our audience. Could you briefly describe what the Crooked Man story is about?
I'm just gonna look up. It's been like a few years.
Okay, that's fine. While you do that. My next point was, I remember you were talking about, and this makes perfect sense, that Hellboy is more of a support role. Like he is a prominent figure in the BPRD, but a lot of the better stories that I recall and remember is the other characters being front of the show rather than Hellboy, And this reminds me of Judge Dredd, that reboot with Keith Urban. How like he's not really the main character, even though he's portrayed to be, or he's like he was marketed to be, but like really he's a very secondary character. And he doesn't even take his mask off, right? He's like, talk about Mandalorian before Mandalorian, right? But like that was a good movie. I thought it was a good movie.
You say Keith Urban?
Golly, not the country singer, Karl Urban. Okay.
I was like, okay. Damn, what version? What
This is the multiverse version, where Keith Urban was contracted to not only do the song for Judge Dredd, but play Judge Dredd.
Oh my god. Sorry. Of course he'd write a song. Why wouldn't you want to open Judge Dredd with a little? Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? With some romantic country music. Okay. I apologize to Jake Gyllenhaal, and I apologize to Karl Urban, and I apologize to Keith Urban for mixing things up.
Wow.
Anyways, but I think there could be potential here. Like, I'm sure the person that they picked for Hellboy, Jack Kesey, is a very good actor, and he does his craft well. But he's compared to other actors that you could think of, or compared to the actors that did Hellboy before, it's just like maybe they are thinking of doing something in that approach, whereas like maybe Hellboy won't be the main person. He's like a side character that supports in the movie, just like in Dredd.
Yeah. So Crooked Man and okay, yeah, this was the Appalachian one. Okay, I just wanted to be sure because like it's part of a story collection. So. Yeah. By the way, a lot of the best Hellboy stuff are like they're not because you can get them in like these volumes and there's kind of a story that goes through them. But a lot of the best stuff is the short story collections, basically, where it's just a single issue that tells a complete story. This is one of them. Basically, Hellboy goes to the Appalachian Mountains, and there's a guy who, in his youth, became a witch. And so Hellboy is trying to help him save his soul, basically.
Okay.
And the Crooked Man is like this, like, old war profiteer who, like, lives in the Appalachian Mountains, right? And so that's kind of the basic setup. And okay, so when you say, like, he's more of a supporting character, so, I mean, that's actually not wrong in that the story isn't really about him. There's a few of these, too. It's not just this one. A lot of these short stories, Hellboy is not really the protagonist. He's like a detective in a lot of the detective stories. He's not the one who sets the plot in motion. There's somebody else who caused something to happen. They made a pact with the devil, or they pissed off some ancient spirit or something, right? And Hellboy shows up, and you're seeing things more through his eyes, right? So he's like the main character in the sense that he's the audience surrogate. But the protagonist of the story, in a dramatic sense, is some other character that he's either helping solve the problem or... Right, and the antagonist is not an enemy of Hellboy; he's an enemy of whoever Hellboy is trying to help. Right, so it follows that, and this is why I mentioned like it's kind of like the X-Files, and that, like, you know, Mulder and Scully, they weren't going up against, you know, their enemies, right? They were working a case.
Sure.
They're not superheroes, right? A lot of the cinematic takes on Hellboy have tried to treat him as if he's kind of like a superhero, but he's not. He's a detective.
Right.
And you have to retain that logic for a lot of the stories to work. So yeah, I think it's like he's a character. You can learn about him from the movie, but he is not the protagonist of the dramatic action that's happening in the movie, right? Any more than, you know, a detective in any Raymond Chandler novel, you know, is the actual protagonist of the story. The action that's happening is stuff he walked into. He didn't cause any of it. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the right way to go. And it's like they can build the character if they want. They can build the character up and then eventually work to an arc, right? And have the franchise they clearly want because they keep making these, right? They're trying to make this work. So yeah, we'll see.
They're trying.
They're trying.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Okay. So I think that's enough with Hellboy. So we'll see. All right. Next on the docket, a new Detective Pikachu movie. So I don't know if you ever watched this stunning display of cinema, but I really enjoyed the Pikachu movie, the Detective Pikachu movie. Ryan Reynolds contributes his voice as Pikachu, and it's just great. It's hilarious, and it's absolutely wild. Story-wise, it's, you know, weird. It's sometimes forced here and there, and but it's a kids movie. I would imagine it's marketing for that. But apparently they're making a new one, and I don't mind watching it again. I just don't know if it's going to have the same allure or magic as the first one, because it was really Ryan Reynolds being Pikachu that did it, you know, and the way that the movie was, like, this company developed a machine to transpose their mind into a Pokemon's mind, hence why Ryan Reynolds becomes Pikachu, and it's reversed at the end. So, like, I don't know what they're gonna do for this one. So, but aside from that, it was surprisingly a good, decent movie, you know, and I'm not surprised that they're gonna do a sequel. I'm just surprised that it's taking this long to do one. So,
I never saw it, so I don't.
Okay, all right. Well, then there you go.
I don't know anything about Pokemon. This was really more of a you and Josh discussion. He seemed really excited about this when we talked about it.
Right. Well, I would imagine, it's his son.
Yeah, I'm not really a Pokemon person. I don't dislike it. I just no one I knew wanted to see it. I just never got around to seeing it.
I see. I think it's on HBO Max, Max. So I'm just saying, you know, if you ever have a moment where you're cooking and you just need some background noise
Yeah,
in
and I run out of 70s TV shows to watch.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Once that's because they're not making any more 70s TV shows, Jordan. You know what I'm saying? So once it's done,
once I run out
you
of
got
them,
yep,
let's see
you got something next. So
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. What am I? I'm working on the Rockford Files right now.
okay.
Actually, yeah, that might be the last big one. So yeah, maybe there'll be a slot open for Detective Pikachu.
Good 90-minute slot for Detective Pikachu.
Yeah.
All right. On to the next one. I think you brought this up. And I try to speak to my source. She didn't know anything about this. So tell me more. There's a new Disney World director. What does that mean?
No, there isn't a new Disney World director. There's a new board of directors. So.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so that's what Josh was trying to do, and he just totally missed it.
Yeah, so this is follow up, and I feel like this might end up being a recurring thing on the show. Let me pull this up. It's the Reedy Creek Improvement District.
Yeah, and they changed the name to like the Florida Tourism.
Yep.
Something.
The Central Florida Tourism Oversight District. So this was something that Ron DeSantis made happen because he's decided that I guess he hates Disney. This started with Disney World sort of like speaking out against the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, which basically means that like if you're gay if you're a teacher or something in schools and you're gay, you're not allowed to like say that you're gay. It's kind of like don't ask, don't tell, I guess.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for I think it was only up to kinder. It wasn't for a race.
It's like primary school.
It was for like primary school. Yeah.
And so like if they're gay and they're married, they're not allowed to like say they're married or have a spouse because then that would make it known that they're gay. Anyway, and so Disney of course is like, yeah, we don't support this. And because obviously their business they get business from all over the country.
Sure.
And so Ron DeSantis, I guess, has decided he's going to try to make them an example, and they're like a woke corporation, whatever that means. I don't even know what that word means anymore. And one of the things he tried to do was dissolve the special district at first, but that would have meant the surrounding counties absorbing the district and then taking on the $1 billion worth of debt that it had.
Oh, okay. So
debt that Disney could afford because they're massive, but none of these counties in Florida or even the state of Florida, I think, would be able to manage that. And so instead, they changed the name of the district, and now Ron DeSantis, because it used to be the Disney would appoint a board of directors to run it, and these would be people. I think I was looking it up because there is a bunch of people whose names I've never heard and I don't know who they are. But they all are, they're all longtime Disney employees, right? Okay. And they would run it, and it was a pretty administrative thing. Like they run their own,
logistics and
their own firefighting, their own water and power, right? Their own roads, all of it, right? But now Ron DeSantis gets to assign whoever he wants, and he's gone out and said that he is going to. Let's see. There's a list of names. I thought we had a link in the sheet. I guess we didn't.
Let me see. If you did provide it, it's not there anymore.
All right. I guess not.
Yeah, that's I'm just going to blame Josh on that.
All right. God damn it, Josh. The hell?
Come on, man.
I could have sworn I remember putting the link in the chat so we would have it, but I guess
it's not there anymore.
I don't know. You'd have to scroll back in the chat to see.
Okay. But
I also have it saved in a doc that I had. So let me go and find that.
So while Jordan's looking for that, this episode is brought to you by no one because we don't have sponsors yet. But if there's any sponsors out there that think, hey, let's take a shot with this new up and coming podcast that potentially could be awesome. That'd be great. We could promote coffee. We could promote shirts. We can promote cupcakes if you want. Who knows?
Simon, are you just thinking of objects that you see in front of you right now?
Oh, I should have done that. We can promote toys and Power Ranger daggers and bookshelves and books and
Power Ranger
corkboards.
daggers.
Yeah.
Power Ranger daggers.
Stuffed alligators that are dressed up as Loki. We can totally promote the heck out of that. So.
All right. Simon, don't worry, you can stop.
Okay.
So let's see the new board that DeSantis has appointed. Mostly people I'm not super familiar with, but a couple I've heard before. So,
oh really?
Bridget Ziegler, who's a proponent of his approach to education.
Okay.
Ron Perry, who is the head of Gathering USA, which is like some far right Christian organization. I've heard that name before somewhere.
Okay.
And Michael Sasso. And all these people are like basically his people, right? And the reason he's done this is that he wants to, one, punish Disney for speaking out against him, but two, he's claiming that he's going to use this to control Disney's content.
So, how?
I don't know. Like he can punish Disney World if Disney does things that he doesn't like.
So like when a fire happens, we'll basically say, hey, unless you make more family oriented or like, right leaning content, we're gonna take this fire.
You got to stop putting gay people in your movies, or we're gonna let Disney World burn down. I don't know. I don't know what he thinks he's gonna do. The thing is, I'm not sure it even matters. Like obviously he wants to run for president in a couple of years, right? Sure. And I suspect a lot of this is just grandstanding for his base, like giving him the red meat. If he can get even one win out of this, no matter how small, right, then he gets to claim it. And then if he can,
he's the governor that stood up to a corporate giant.
Yeah, because this is all about him, presenting himself as strong, right? Some other bills that he's passing that are like a whole other topic, but like I think they're either passed or discussing a bill that would bloggers would not be allowed to criticize the governor, right? DeSantis.
Oh shoot. Oh,
yeah, there'd be like a rule about like them not being able to speak out against him. So like his goal is to clamp down on all criticism of himself and the Republican Party. They also, the former chair of the Republican Party in Florida introduced a bill to ban the Democratic Party. You heard about that? Yeah, they would ban it, and anyone who's registered Democrat would no longer have a party, right? So like,
but how did they ban it? Do you know? I was thinking of one thing, and it could be not what I'm thinking about, but like,
well, I mean, they didn't. As far as the bill hasn't been passed yet, I don't see how that's even legal.
Right.
But their goal is to squash dissent and criticism as much as they can, and I think so. I don't know if it even matters if he's actually successful. I mean, Disney is a multinational. It's not like they care about this one state. Last time we talked about this, I think they're probably looking at opening parks in other places anyway, just like everyone else is. I hope so. Yeah, because like, why would you want to operate in that environment? I think the goal here is for DeSantis to be able to say, "Hey, look, I did all this stuff in Florida. Elect me so I can do it to the whole country."
Look what I can do.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's obviously a whole other discussion, like whether he can pull that off. But this is just super interesting because it does mean like we're going to continue probably to hear about like whatever Disney does. Whatever movies they release, whatever they put on Disney Plus, this could end up being like a sort of grist for the Republican culture wars, right? To sort of go out there and say like, oh, look at Disney's woke. They've got a gay person in this movie, or they're supporting trans rights or something. Whatever it is, is their wedge issue, because it feels like it does change every couple of years. Like right now seriously, like a few years ago, I feel like I never heard about trans people. And now it feels like there's a new story every day, because that's the wedge issue now, right? Who knows what it'll be in 2 years? They'll pick something. But yeah, just a weird. I just can't stop thinking it's just such a weird, uniquely American thing that we've got this state called Florida, which exists purely as a resort. Like, yes, because people have moved there because it's cheap, but like no one really wants to live there. It's just like it's affordable. Half the state's going to be underwater, and by the end of the century, so you wouldn't want to live in most of it anyway. It was built to be a resort back in the late 19th, early 20th century. It was built purely for that. For a long time, that's all it was. And it was turned into a large economy by Disney World, right? And Orlando, like, sort of developing into a massive resort destination, right?
Sure.
And it's become this weird confluence of, like, conservative politics and weird development policies, leaving it open to destruction by climate change, things like that. And now media, like mass media, I don't know. It's just, I can't see something like this happening in any other country anywhere in the world, right?
No, you're right.
Yeah.
I don't think so. But I think, I mean, you have a giant nation of what was it, 330 million people?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And just like to have some kind of synthesis in values or just some unification in values, like it's going to be extremely difficult, right? And so like one of the kind of discussion points that I've heard is that, if it's like it's a social experiment, right? So if one state is doing something that maybe a group of people don't like, they can what's the term? Move with their feet or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is an extremely unique situation that I don't think any country in the world has experienced or seen.
I mean, it's interesting that. So I mentioned Defunctland last time we talked about this, and one of the things he mentions is as critical to the development of Florida. Was it Defunctland? There's another. I think it was Wendover Productions has a video about how Florida ended up the way it is, and one of the things is, watch both videos; they're both great. But the point is, Florida developed about the same time as California developed, and so they're very similar in terms of, like, they're both car-dependent suburbs, right? They have lots of freeways and stuff, right? Yeah. And I think what's happened is it used to be like they were pretty similar in a lot of ways, but over the last 20 years, like California has gone increasingly for the Democratic Party and is much more liberal. And then, well, I mean, not the last 20, like the last 5 years, the last 10 years, Florida has just leaned hard right. And a lot of people are moving there. I guess conservatives are moving there for that reason. And that's why it's happened, is it's become like a feedback loop, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think it'll be interesting where that goes, because already I see so many news stories that say like California versus Florida, Desantis versus
Newsom.
Versus Newsom, because they've both been very successful in different ways, right? Yeah. And as two alternative models for the country. So the funny thing is, so much of the arguing I feel like doesn't matter, because this is not about people, like, this isn't really about politics so much as housing prices. Florida is cheap. That's why people were moving. It was cheap.
Sure.
Yeah. No, if people are moving out of California, it's because housing is expensive. If people are moving to Florida, it's because housing is cheap. Housing is becoming increasingly less cheap in Florida, so you'll probably see that start to slow down.
I mean, it was the same thing that happened in Texas, right? Like, it's kind of like there was this boom in building, and then it's slowing down because, housing is becoming more and more expensive. Same thing with Idaho. I mean, before, I was planning on moving during, it was just like, okay, what would be more affordable? And I was considering Idaho, and then literally there was a flock of an exodus from California to Idaho, and that raised up the prices exponentially.
I mean, you really dodged a bullet there, because it's Idaho.
Hey, I love potatoes.
But no, Arizona, Las Vegas, right? Like, it's
My family, my other auntie who doesn't own a laundromat, she and her family moved to Vegas in Henderson. You know what I'm saying? And I think you're right. And I was gonna say something and I totally lost it. So There you go.
Anyway, it's an interesting cultural process that's happening around Disney World, and a lot of different threads.
And you know what kind of, aside from all this that you've explained and stuff like that, like it would have been a big win for him if he actually had people who are administrative people. You know what I'm saying? Like I have, like you were saying, Ziegler education. What does she know about building fire departments?
I don't think it matters though, right? Like they don't care.
You're right. And that's what it's revealing.
Yeah.
That's what it's revealing. Like if it was like legitimately, hey, you know what? I want to do something actually, for a cause, right? But at the same time, I would imagine if that cause is something, hey, I'll tell you that I'm going to do it more efficiently. You pick the wrong people to do it, I think. Yeah. I don't think they have.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if these cast Disney as the enemy in like the drama that he's constructing, right? Mm-hmm. That the Republican Party really is constructing, because I'm sure Desantis has like an army of advisors and people and consultants, right? And so they don't want Disney to succeed, and that board doesn't exist to do the job. They exist to punish the people that conservatives want punished, which is Disney, right? They're there to be thought police. They're not there to be like administrators.
It's just so weird that their foothold is this. But anyways.
I mean, it's not just them, just to be clear, like this is a statewide phenomenon. I think we mentioned there's other districts like this that DeSantis has sort of taken over and installed his people in, right? Like planned communities, stuff like that. If Universal gets their district, I think they can look forward to similar treatment, And so for the next at least 2 years, until that presidential election comes around, I mean, either he wins, God help us all, or he loses and his star fades, because one thing we've seen, right, is that this conservative movement does not, to them it's all about strength and projecting strength. They want like a strong man who's going to be in charge and like tell them what to do. And if any weakness is shown, then they're done.
They'll flock to someone else.
Trump is already like, they're trying to show him the door, right? So we'll see how that plays out. I think what's going to be really interesting is to see how this plays out nationally in the media, because like, first off, is Disney even going to respond to this, or they're just going to do what they want? And if they want to try to go after Disney World, oh well, they'll be investing elsewhere anyway.
Sure.
Does Universal, because they want to expand, they have big plans for that new park. Yep. Do they decide to kiss the ring to make it through? They have, because all of these are media companies first and foremost. They build brands by releasing movies, and they don't just release them in Florida, right? So they can't afford to just agree with whatever Ron DeSantis wants to do, right? Otherwise, they might alienate large segments of their audience. I think HBO Max is a bit of an advantage here, because they don't own theme parks. And I suspect, I mean, dude, they put James Gunn in charge of DC. James Gunn, who is not known for his moderate or conservative views, right?
Right.
But they don't care, right? Because they don't own a theme park in Orlando.
Sure.
They license do they own Six Flags, or do they just license characters to
I think they license their their IP. Yeah.
So like, they can afford to just do what they want. And maybe that's going to be an advantage as the DCU spins up, is they don't have that baggage. They don't need to worry about like whatever this or that person wants to do. They don't have the Disney image or brand to try to maintain. They can just be DC, and they can, HBO, people expect HBO to make more mature entertainment, right? That could help them, or at least it gives them one less thing to have, like one less thing to have to worry about when they're trying to decide like what content, like we were talking about, what's going to be R-rated, what's going to be PG-13, what's going to be PG, what topics can they discuss, what themes can they approach, right? The slate that Gunn announced is super progressive, right? I mean, we're talking about comic books written by people like Grant Morrison, who is gender nonconforming, and Grant Morrison authored the run on Doom Patrol that gave us like Danny the Street, the sentient street who is transgender, right? So like, I don't know. I'm interested to see how that plays out. Like you said, like people vote with their feet. And if DC is out there making stuff like this and it's popular and it makes money, how do you push back against that, right?
Sure.
Other studios will start to look timid and out of touch if they can't keep pace with that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll continue seeing it as it progresses. Next thing, I was actually going to skip this, but I just want to talk briefly about it because I think the actor is pretty cool. Into the Spiderverse, they got Spider-Man India. And the person that's voicing Spider-Man India, I was trying to find the guy's name. I have the IMDb. Soni. I hope I pronounced your name right. Forgive me.
Just say the driver from Deadpool, the guy who drives the car in Deadpool.
He was the taxi driver from Deadpool. He's great. There was an anthology show with him, with Stephen Buscemi, and the guy who played Harry Potter.
Oh, right.
Miracle Workers.
Miracle Workers, yeah. That's a good show, man.
He's great in it. And and just the range. Like, I think there was one where it's like in medieval times and he just plays like this diabolic. Anyways.
For anyone who hasn't seen the show, it's an anthology series. Every season is a completely different story, just with the same actors. They just come up with new stories. They play different characters. It's just the same actors, I guess, because they just want to, like Daniel Radcliffe and Steve Buscemi just want to work together. So this is what they do.
And it's great. And it looks like the great thing about that show is it looks like everyone's having fun, right? And like they're really into it, and every season is hilarious. So, anyways, great show, Miracle Workers. Go watch it. But Karani Soni is gonna offer his voice as Spider-Man India and Into the Spider-Verse, and that's just icing on this cake for me. So that's awesome. All right, next one, which is, come on. This pause is brought to you by something coffee. Folgers coffee crystals.
We don't need to hawk Folgers, man. We're not that desperate.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. So
we're not that desperate. Dunkin', at least. Dunkin' instant coffee is actually pretty decent. Yeah.
Dude, right?
Good. Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but or anyone out there, anyone who's bashing on McCafe, you guys are the worst.
McDonald's coffee is also
is pretty decent. Good.
It meets the baseline for decent coffee. I get McDonald's coffee sometimes.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I look forward to when I become a senior citizen so that I could get that senior citizen discount for that coffee, because that coffee is choice. You know what I'm saying? So, all right, that buffer leads us to our final topic of today, and it's a somber one. It's a shocker, I should say, but for anyone who is living under a rock, Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, had something to say.
He went off the deep end, didn't he?
He did. I mean, anyways, I'm gonna offer the spotlight to you in a little bit. I think you have the eloquence and the words and to make it craft it, sexy stash. What did Scott Adams do?
All right. Yeah. Well. Okay. Let me try to summarize this. Simon, I don't know if you want to see if you can find there's a clip out there of him actually saying. Okay. But yeah, he has a podcast, and look, this is not a huge surprise. It's been well known for years that Scott Adams is right leaning, and has a lot of pretty far right opinions. But he's never really been a typical conservative in the sense, he's not a church going kind of guy, right? But yeah, in a recent episode, I guess, of his podcast, which is just him sitting in his house talking, not like us, obviously, we have production values, but it's just him. Looks like it's just him sitting in his kitchen or something, just talking to the camera, not even with good lighting, in his giant house, which we'll get to in a minute. He just straight up says he's given up on black people. He doesn't like black people. He's moved to a neighborhood with mostly white people to stay away from black people. He thinks that the best thing white Americans can do is stop trying, just avoid black people and don't associate with them. and he says he's not going to try to help black people anymore. Now, he didn't really specify what he's been doing to help black people. As far as I know, nothing. I'm not really sure what he was referring to. If there's any black people out there who, Scott Adams, if he's helped you in any way, let us know. Leave a comment, I guess. I don't know what he's been doing. But yeah, he just went all in. It's like, it's not even subtle. He's just straight up saying he's like a white supremacist and he doesn't care what anyone thinks anymore. Unsurprisingly.
Well, he never did. He never cared what people
I mean, yeah, he probably, well, I'm sure he cared at some point, you know, early in his life when he wasn't independently wealthy. But now he doesn't he lives alone in his mansion in the hills outside of the Bay Area. And maybe never leaves, and he probably doesn't care anymore. Anyway, obviously everyone who carried the Dilbert comic strip canceled it. Publishers who were publishing his books have canceled, you know, all of their work with him. And of course he's all like, oh man, like look at the society. He's like, dude, you just straight up came out and said you're a racist and you think everyone should be racist. Why would they want to work with you anymore? But yeah, it's crazy because like this isn't a small thing. Like, look, it's not like haven't been conservative comic strip writers. Like they've been around forever. There's probably a few. If you're spending any time online, you've probably seen these floating around like on Facebook. Your uncle or something posts them. I don't know. But you know, they're not very good and no one really cares about them. But Dilbert was like a huge thing. Like for like 30 years, Dilbert has been one of the most popular, well-known comic strips. It had a TV show. So it's pretty crazy that, you know, to see Scott Adams go. I mean, I never knew anything about him, but I probably still have him, like a bunch of like old collections of Dilbert. For anyone who's interested, I got into comics not because of comic books or superhero comics. I got into comics because of comic strip collections. Like I'd go to the bookstore and I'd get collections of like Calvin and Hobbes and stuff, right? Dilbert was never one of my favorites, but I liked it. And I have a few volumes of like the from the early years. I have no idea what the quality of it has been for the last decade or so. So yeah, he's crazy. But I got to hand it back to Simon though, because as we were discussing this a couple days ago, planning for the show, we discovered, me and Josh, to our surprise and our shock and our awe, that Simon is apparently a Scott Adams expert, that he is a scholar of the man and his work and his philosophy. And I really want to hear Simon's take on this.
You speak too kindly. You speak too kindly. So, I think one of the things. So I got interested in him because of Dilbert as well. Like I heard of the name because of Dilbert. I wasn't probably a fan like some folks were, but like I know when I was growing up, middle school, high school, or more like middle school, like before internet, and the only way that you could get movie times was at like the weekly newspaper.
Newspaper. You had to think a minute to remember what they were called.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And but I always remember there was always the comic section and Dilbert was one of them, right? But anyways, not recently, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, he wrote a book on how to I forgot, it's not How to Win Bigly, even though that was one of his books. But it was basically a book on how to lose but win at the same time. So his main thesis in the book was instead of goal orienting or goal centering, you do processes. So like do the same thing or commit to doing the same thing over and over again, right? So that was the book that I read. His big thing that got him up on the controversy roller coaster was that he predicted before anyone, from what it sounds like, he predicted that Trump's going to win the presidential nomination. Before anyone, he was like, yeah, I figured it out, that. And then people just flocked to hear what he had to say. And basically that was kind of the start. From how I understood it, that was kind of his start. He wasn't a conservative. And as you mentioned, he might have leaned conservative due to just the time being, but he always professed at that time that he was like an extreme leaning, like left-leaning liberal. We talked about how like, well, one of the things like he was open and tolerant to trans rights and all this, and he was even open to certain socialist kind of ideas if they worked properly. But yeah, that was kind of the shock.
I mean, he might still be for white people,
right?
I think that's actually key. I think because one of the things about Trump, right, is like he's not really conservative economically, right?
Yes, right.
A lot of his economic policies are protectionist or socialist. He just for white people, right? Like that's the key. That's the key. Anyway, continue with your
and so I think though when COVID-19 hit and the pandemics happened, I got the sense that he didn't he became more reclusive. And so he started just staying at his giant castle in Northern California.
Listeners, you can look this up online. It's got a pool and a tennis court. Yeah.
An indoor tennis court, an indoor basketball court. Like it's huge property, right? And like I feel so I mentioned behind cameras that I remember hearing him saying that like one of the things like he doesn't want to be around fat people during the pandemic because he read a study that obese people are more prone to have the COVID-19 virus and that they would be more prone to experiencing the severe side effects of it and the symptoms of it, and they were more contagious of it, or they were contagions of it, right? And so like he was saying that he didn't want to be near them at like a panel discussion or like a host. Again, I can't corroborate that at this now. So like if this was anyways, but I thought that was like, I took it aback from what he was saying. It's like, wow, that's a bit harsh, And so just to say the least. And
Simon, you assume the best in people all the time. And you really gotta learn a little discretion. Like it's a little harsh. Hating an entire class of people for something that's no fault of their own. That's a little hard.
Right, to the max, and like, and that's kind of his thing. He like his book, Win Bigly. Like it seems like he makes a statement and he feels that he has this confidence that his conclusions, interpretations are so sure and that he cannot be proven wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like there was clips that I saw where like he would address like his the people that would comment on his shows and stuff like that, and like the moment that someone would like disagree with him or the moment that someone would charge him with something, like he would just not defend himself, but he would attack ad hominem like many times, and it was just like it was off-putting, and this is in my sense this is kind of that MO and to the max, right? And like, because what started it? So we see this entire clip. What started it? It was a Rasmussen report, and I know I've heard of Rasmussen, and but it seemed like it wasn't a major legitimate study. Like that, Rasmussen is just this survey thing, but the whole idea was what triggered him was that there was a telephone survey that Rasmussen did. I don't know how many people because I would have to sign up for Rasmussen to know, but like depending on how many people that they called, 26% who were African American said that that being white was a problem. And so then he rolled with that. He rolled with that and made this conclusion. And
well, I think an important detail too is they ask like, do you agree with this statement? It's okay to be white, and I think some context there is that that's become kind of like a dog whistle amongst white supremacists, like as a thing to say. So there is some context there that like they might be disagreeing with the statement, or they might be reacting like, oh no, this is that thing that white supremacists like to say.
Sure.
Right, and we know what it really means, which is it's not okay to be any other color, right? So I think that's something that he just, I mean, this is a perfect example. So you mentioned like, it seems like when he's decided he's right about something, that's it, right? And he's not willing to like he's not willing to reflect on his opinions or what his biases may be. He probably feels that he has no biases, that he's a rational, right thinking person, right? And I'm sure we all know people like this who like they just aren't able to see themselves objectively, right, and get out of their own head. And so, yeah, you can't convince them of anything or change their mind about anything.
Unless
also,
they do it themselves, right?
Yeah,
and that's what he does.
Yeah, which they're never going to do, right? They're not able to do that, right? And also, it's a perfect example of confirmation bias, which is like he can say, "Oh, I observed this data, this Rasmussen poll, and it proved that this thing was true. Therefore, I believe it." But obviously, that's BS. He wanted to believe that. He already believes this. He's looking for things that he can say, "Yes, this proves it." Right.
Yes, exactly.
And once he finds those things, he will cherry pick the ones he needs to then say, this proves I'm right, and I'm being rational. And if you disagree with me, you're being irrational, right? Because the data shows that I'm right. Of course, it's the data that he chooses, the very small sets of data.
That's what it sounds like. Exactly. Yeah. That's what it sounds like. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, and so all to say, well, there you have it. And not to, I guess I do try to see the best in people, but like not to add more to the fire to this, but like one of the things that he mentions in his books like constantly is that how he got fired to an executive position because he was white, and that was kind of like, and who knows, again, I'm just interpreting and I could be totally wrong, but I'm just saying that like, it seems like that has always been a chip on his shoulder. Like the fact that he talks about it constantly in his books, and just like, or he always introduces himself and adds that story all the time or brings it up all the time. It just seems like that has been a chip in his shoulder. And that's something that might have turned into something else. And that's what we're
seeing. He's always thought this. He's just,
okay.
Right. He's just finally saying it. So I think like I said, it's confirmation bias. So yeah, he's got a story that he feels proves he's right, and he's just going to repeat it over and over and over and over and over, right? Because that's one of the, and it can be hard when it's, I think maybe because I studied English in college, right? And one of the things that you learn reading all these old books is that a lot of these great authors, they're people. They're not particularly, most of them, they're not particularly admirable people. Many of them had, really strong addictions to various drugs and alcohol. But many of them were just genuinely awful people, like racists, fascists, right? And I think that does it sort of, it trains you to realize okay, just because somebody had a big cultural impact, that doesn't mean you have to respect them or care about their opinions, right? Okay, It's a lot easier. This has become sort of a normal thing at this point where this happened with Rick and Morty recently, right? Where somebody,
that's right.
Somebody prominent has been engaging in some bad behavior for a while, and it finally came to light. Yeah. And I was also
thinking. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say. I think trying to rationalize it, to look at them oh, why do they think this? You're wasting your time. There is no why. That's not a rational thing to believe, right? Being a white supremacist is not a rational belief. There is no data. There's no events that happen in life that will explain it. It's a sub-rational emotion. It's driven by emotion, right?
Okay.
And it is what it is. So move on. I know it's harsh, but whatever. Dilbert's been around. I mean, it's probably not as good as it used to be. I haven't read it in a decade. So no great loss. And yeah, just move on. Don't waste your time on these people. They're not worth it,
Well, I just think that I hear what you're saying. I totally do. But I just feel that for those that maybe Scott Adams is not a good example, but say for example, if someone that they admired and wanted to emulate, based off their values, and they come to find out oh crap, this person is a very horrible person. It is a daunting experience to to encounter that, right? And like you don't want, like, what is that expression? You don't want to meet your heroes.
Oh yeah, never meet your heroes.
Never meet your heroes, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if there was anyone out there who's like, man, like I want to emulate my life as Scott Adams did, but like I know that there was a lot of people that bought his self-help book. I was one of them. You know, it's like, oh, okay, this was like at the same time I was just like, oh, okay, dang, it's finally revealed itself, I guess, you know. And so like, but then here's another thing too that I want to add, just to maybe bring a curveball. Like he and I don't know if he did it well. We'll see, right? But like, he's one of those guys that like, it looks like he takes pleasure in like thinking that he knows how to play the media game, right? There's like this media game, and he figured it out.
He definitely thinks he's smarter than everybody else.
That's right.
That comes through in like everything he does. Yeah.
Yeah, he exudes that energy, right? And and you know, dude, like, I wanted to find the clip that when he talked about like how he didn't want to be next to fat people. when I try to Google it or try to search it on YouTube, it's all about his rant. It's all about his rant. You know what I'm saying? And it's other people talking about his rant. That's it. It's like he I'm not saying he did this intentionally. Or maybe he did. I don't know. Or intentional in the sense that he finally exposes himself, right? But like, maybe this is I don't know. Maybe this is him just thinking that, I played with the Matrix, you know, I screwed with the Matrix kind of thing, you know. But anyways,
I'm sure he's telling himself that. I don't. No, I mean this, and you see this time and again with people who have that kind of like, I mean, I don't know if this is narcissism or what, but like often people will do something, maybe put their foot in their mouths, and then like the next day they'll turn around and say, oh, well, you know, look at how you're panicking. This was my plan all along. You know,
right.
These woke internet people, now they're freaking out over this thing I said, right? And
yeah, because he's still continuing making content, and I haven't seen those episodes yet. But like, I would imagine that's what he's talking about,
right?
You know,
yeah, because if he can't be wrong, and he's smarter than everybody else, then the only explanation for why, you know, the consequences that have happened is that he must have been doing this intentionally somehow. This is what like that's how people like that rationalize it to themselves. And even though it's a lie, I don't know. I think, you know, in order to lie to others, you have to lie to yourself first, right? And I think it is actually surprisingly easy for people to actually truly believe in their own lies that they tell themselves. As crazy as that sounds, I think it's entirely possible for someone to tell themselves a lie and actually believe it because their self-identity hangs on that lie being true.
That's,
you know.
Yes, you're absolutely right. But so here's my question, because I do see that. How sustainable is that, right? And like, I don't have an answer for that. I'm just asking,
right,
to the ether. Like, how sustainable will that be? Because like, it's almost as if I don't think a human being can live like that for a long time. Something's gonna crack, right? You know.
I mean, it does. I mean, arguably, it's not. If you look at like, not just individuals, but entire social movements. I mean, well, okay, Donald Trump has probably been doing that his entire life. I don't think he knows how to operate any other way, right? You're right. Something breaks because Donald Trump is a mess of a human being. I mean, he's been through how many marriages?
Okay.
Right. The one thing he was actually successful at, being an authoritarian demagogue, even that he's somehow managing to ruin by like he just burns bridge after bridge after bridge, right? All he had to do was play nice with the rest of the Republican Party, but like he can't even do that. And so now he might be replaced with Ron DeSantis, right? So like, yeah, you're right. It's not sustainable. But
he got his trading cards. What are those? His NFTs?
His NFTs. Yes.
You can always rely on that.
And yeah, the NFTs are forever, as NFTs are.
Yes.
They always they have incredible value and they always will. But no, yeah, I think it can be super sustainable because again, if someone's identity it depends on it, then they will never. The only way it would ever stop. I think the better question is what can stop that. Because like I think
Okay.
somebody could destroy their lives following that path, but they will still cling to that self-image, right? What stops it is, just a monumental amount of humility is required to step back from that. And I suspect that's something very few people are truly capable of. And if someone does have that, they probably won't start down that path to begin with, right? Like, I don't know how old Scott Adams is, but he's probably pretty old at this point. He's not going to change now. He is who he's always been, and he always will be this person, If he was going to change, it would have happened already. So yeah. I think they'll take that, they'll ride that, and they will. Okay, let's look at some other examples. We've already forgotten about Kanye because there's just so much craziness in the world.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah, that's
that dude
right.
freaking he's destroyed his life, his career, probably his family, and I don't know if he has any friends at this point. And he will keep doing it. He's not going to stop. Like, he just keeps going. He actually went on, what's his face?
Alex Jones.
Alex
Infowars.
Jones.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And he started saying how he loves Hitler. And even Alex Jones was looking uncomfortable. Like, what? That's how.
Yeah, no.
that's how
When
crazy he
you
went.
get Alex Jones uncomfortable, you know that you've crossed a line.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
because if that's how Kanye sees himself, he's never going to step back from that. He can't. It would destroy his ego, and allowing your ego to be destroyed is a very difficult thing to do, I think.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Especially I would imagine how much harder it is at that pedestal
Right.
state, right? So, no, for sure. Well, okay, this is off script, but okay. So you said you have a lot of Dilbert. What are you gonna do with those?
Nothing. They're probably just going to sit on the shelf like they have for the last 10 years. I haven't looked at them in forever. Actually, hold on a second. Let me see here. So let's see. 7 years of highly defective people. So this was a 7-year sort of like best of collection. This is show you how long this thing has been going. And I bought this when I was like 10.
Okay.
Probably younger. Man, and it really shows, right? Like what kind of ego does it take to publish a book like this where it's like everybody, because that is the theme of the comic, is that everybody is stupid, right? In the office. This one's probably most interesting because it's not just the comic strips. It's got Scott Adams' own annotations explaining them, right? So it's his editorial voice. It's got like all his notes about the characters and like how he came up with them, right? I don't know. I haven't looked at this and I can't remember how long. I'll probably just leave it on the shelf indefinitely. I'll be honest. Like I said, there's like T.S. Eliot's one of my favorite poets. He was also kind of an anti-Semite, and right.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have laughed at
Yeah,
that.
but I don't know why. Yeah, anti-Semitism is funny.
Yeah, no. That was really horrible of me. So,
but here's the thing. So is every other British author from around the time that T.S. Eliot was writing. So what do you do? Do you throw out all of culture and try to start over from scratch? Some people have tried that.
yeah, some people have.
Yeah, there are authors out there who just like went off on their own and tried to do anything. I think the reality though is like you can't, especially once like the culture is in your head, you can't just delete it or turn it off. And I'm skeptical of the benefit of that. I'm skeptical of the benefit of forgetting all the bad things of history, because otherwise you're just going to have to relearn them the hard way, right? Like that's
Exactly.
Yeah.
I totally agree 100%. Like it's almost as if kind of like, I think you went back to talking about like how Desantis was like want to fight against the woke, right? And like you brought up like, well, what does woke even mean, right? And I'm not saying that I don't know. I who knows what woke means now, but there was a sense that there was a lot of folks in that camp that was like they wanted to throw the baby with the bathwater because of just like a purity test. It was like, well, if this person is just a horrible person, then everything that they do, we shouldn't even contribute, or we shouldn't contribute with our money or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just like, and I think that's a hard sell for me personally, because it's just like what you just said right now, where it's just like the when you throw the baby with the bathwater, you might repeat the same mistakes over again, right? And so it's just like it's something that we have to just learn to deal with and learn to accept that, yeah, the creator may not be a great person, but their work contributed to our culture, and
Right. Well,
it's in our,
I wouldn't even say it's about like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Instead, I would, because like all right, so I'll try not to go too far down the critical theory rabbit hole, but I am a firm proponent of the death of the author, right? So
right.
This is a critical
And
concept.
you brought that up.
Yeah, it's a a modern structuralist critical concept that sort of basically what it really means in a critical context is like when you're looking at a work, a text, a film, whatever. Don't think about who made it or why. Don't try to interpret it through the lens of what did Socrates mean when he said this, right? Like you don't know. All you have is the text. All you have is the work. And even if the author had things to say, if they had notes that they wrote down and published for all of eternity to read in interpreting their own work, the basic argument is they're still not any more authoritative than any other critic. This is, in other words, they're working as a writer, as an artist, creating a work, and then they go over here and they work as a critic, writing criticism about their work. But it's still just criticism about the work. The text is its own thing now. It has its and it is what it is. That's the structuralist view of a text, right? Of criticism, that you've got a text like, say the Odyssey, and it is what it is. And it doesn't matter what the author or authors, because we don't know who wrote it. And this is part of the reason, right? You don't even always know who the author actually was. It doesn't matter what they may have meant or what they were trying to do or what they were trying to say. The text it says what it says. It is made up of the words that it's made up of, right? And so that's kind of how I always thought of it. Like once the text exists, it's its own thing. And so it doesn't really matter what Scott Adams or whoever meant or what they believed. I can see the point in wanting to boycott, say, the Harry Potter stuff because the author is still alive and profiting from all that stuff. And so if you don't want her to take your money that you're giving her and like give it to like some anti-trans, charity, because I think they have those in the UK, then that makes sense. But if somebody likes Harry Potter, I mean, I don't think that's like an issue, right? Like the books are what they are. It doesn't matter what she believes or what she meant when she wrote them. They exist now and they're their own thing and they stand on their own. And I mean, 100 years from now, she'll be dead and you won't be able to ask her what she meant or what she thought, right? So just leave them be. I mean, this is another good example. This would be Chuck Dixon. This is one that's near and dear to my heart. So Chuck Dixon is the creator of Bane, the character Bane.
Got it.
In Batman, who I am personally a big fan of. And he went full on Red Hat MAGA when Trump, like hardcore. Check out his Twitter feed sometime. It's nothing but like the worst Facebook quality, your racist uncle MAGA memes and stuff. It's embarrassing. But hey, he's wrote not just the original Bane series. He wrote a Bane series called Conquest that I thought was pretty good, right? Now, knowing what he believes, I can then look at the text and be like, well, now I can see like, yeah, there's some subtext here about like conservative politics, because he does like really push like Bane is awesome because he's so smart and he's so strong. And I can see how Bane is a figure of the strong man, of the authoritarian strong man that conservatives seem to like so much, right? I can see those values embedded in the text. But before I knew that, I still saw those same values, but I saw it as a critique of those values because Bane is a villain, right? Now, it just so happens that Chuck Dixon wrote other stories where Bane is the hero. So take that for what it's worth. But, and that comes up a lot. I mean, The Dark Knight Returns. I remember when I first read it, and I kind of read it as if it was a critique of fascism because it made Batman look like a failure, right? At least that's how I interpret it. This is a story where Batman's mission failed, and the world is worse than ever. And then he comes back, and it doesn't get better. And then he tricks Superman into fighting him and then he fakes a heart attack, and he goes underground and recruits a bunch of kids as child soldiers.
Wow,
right?
jeez.
This is a story about, the fascist subtext of Batman and how he's like destroying everything around him. That's how I interpreted it. And I didn't know at the time that apparently everyone else in the world thinks this is the coolest version of Batman. Right? And then much later discovering that the author of that is kind of crazy, right? And has turned into a crazy old man. So, right, it becomes much more clear in All-Star Batman and Robin, which is a prequel to The Dark Knight Returns, where Batman, this is where we get the famous "I'm the goddamn Batman" line. Right?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And like Robin almost kills the Green Lantern, and right. It becomes much more clear as he's gotten older and he just has fewer fucks to give. He's just he doesn't need subtext anymore. He just puts it in the text. Right. But yeah, the point is The Dark Knight Returns still exists as part of Batman history and is still its thing. Bane still exists as part of Batman history, and they exist now separate from the people who made them and what they might have intended when they wrote them, right? Because that's what art is. That's what it does. You create an object and it goes off into the world and becomes its own separate thing, and you no longer control it, right? So, wow. Anyway, that was a bit of a rant.
Yeah, well, that went deep, man. That went deep, and it started with Scott Adams' rant. But I think that was a great place to conclude this episode of the Secret Hideout. And thank you, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this episode. What does Josh say? We're going to close the doors now.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Have to. There you go. And that's it. Sexy Steph said it. All right, everyone. Have a good night. Or whatever day. I'm really butchering this closing. So do the song quickly before I ramble.
I'm doing the song. This was the Secret Hideout. Go home.